There's an old adage about that if you had an ounce of gold in the Roman days, you could buy a toga and a pair of sandals. In 1929, if you had an ounce of gold, it was a $20 gold piece, and you could buy a pretty good suit of clothes for $20. Mm-hmm. The same holds true today. Buy an ounce of gold, it's going to cost you $1,000, $1,100, what have you. And I don't know about where you folks are, but here in Minneapolis, you can go out and buy a pretty good suit of clothes for $1,000. So it's always going to exchange for X amount of goods and services. No matter what.
That's a great example, and I've heard that before, but it really does show you that this has maintained, really the same value throughout history. Why do you think that is? Why is it that, through Roman times up until now, gold, silver, precious metals have retained that much? Is it because there's a limited amount? I mean, is that really it?
Well, it's a commodity, and commodities exchange for goods and services. It's basic economics. The same is probably true of a barrel of oil. The gold, the precious metals, the oils, all of the metals, even things like wheat and coffee, they usually all move together in concert, go up together. And the reason they move is not because they're becoming more valuable. It's because the dollar or whatever form of currency you're using to purchase it is losing value. So we don't look at precious metals as an investment. We look at it as financial security.
Mm-hmm. The number is 1-800-686-2237. Midas Resources is the website. How does somebody get into this? I mean, how did you, start dealing gold, getting into the silver market? How does that happen?
Well, actually, I've been in sales for a good portion of my life, sales and sales management, and I was buying metals. Mm-hmm. And actually, my broker got into it. I was going to retire, and he says, you really ought to come down here and take a look at this. And I did, and I thoroughly enjoy it. I don't even find it a job. I mean, it's more of interest to me. It keeps you, looking at current events. It keeps you looking at economics. It keeps you talking to new people every day and building relationships with long-term clients and things like that. So it's really an enjoyable business to be in.
And it's probably pretty easy for you to sleep at night knowing that you're helping people and that you're trying to have them ensure that they have a future, so they do have a backup plan. So they do have,
absolutely.
With people losing, their pensions, with them losing their homes, with them losing their cars because they can't pay their credit card bills. I mean, this is something that you can depend on no matter what.
We hear, absolutely. We hear horror stories every day. People are fleeing the paper market so fast to get into precious metals. And 5 years ago, the majority of people that we dealt with were old line buyers. I mean, their families had done it for generations. Now we find that probably 70% of the people that we deal with are people that have never purchased metals before, know very little about it. They want to find out about it because it's become mainstream. If you watch television, you'll see ads on there to purchase gold at least one an hour, it seems like, in prime time.
Yeah, the Cash for Gold people really took it to us this year, and that should really raise some alarm bells that, gold is a commodity that you need to get into. I mean, they bought Super Bowl time, and they had that big commercial with Ed McMahon and MC Hammer, and I can't even imagine what they're giving people for gold, but, they basically just give you a little Ziploc bag, you mail it in, and then they give you a certain percentage of the weight of the gold. When they have commercials on television buying mass amounts of gold, you better wake up and realize that this is here to stay, and they wouldn't be doing it if it didn't have and maintain value.
That's absolutely true. And if you take a look at the big money people, the banks, the nations are buying gold. Banks are buying gold. These are the people that know what's going on. They're the people that, if there is a master plan, are aware of it, and they're putting their money into hard assets. And people are taking a good hard look at it and saying, look, if they're doing it, we better be doing it as well.
What do you have to say to people that are afraid that something like what happened in FDR's day, where he'll just say that you have to give up all your gold coins? I know there's that one provision that if they weren't made before 1933, they can come and take it. I get that a lot. That's really, that would be just the rarest of occasions.
Well, it would be, and it's not impossible that it could happen. I mean, the possibility of confiscation in gold, I think, could be a real possibility, but they could never. There's not enough on the surface of the earth to back the currencies that are out there. Mm-hmm. Prior to these massive infusions here by our president, he's committed, $10 trillion here over the next 10 years or something. They said that
it's actually worse than
the face
that.
Of the earth and measured it against the currency and backed the currency 100%. Gold would have to sell for $50,000 an ounce. I mean, that's how far out of line that the currency has gotten. If they did it at, even at a tenth, and just by backing it at 10%, would put some limits on the fiat currency. It would certainly be better than letting people go out and just print money as they wanted. But even at that point, gold would be selling at $5,000 an ounce. So there could be a possibility that they would attempt that, but I think that I think not. I think if there is a world currency, it will be backed with something, though.
Do you really think that? Do you think if they go with some kind of a world currency, they're going to go back to precious metals? Do you think they'll actually give it to the people, or it'll just be backed somewhere like we used to have Fort Knox, I guess?
Well, the United States is supposed to hold more gold than any other country in the world. Nobody's audited it, unfortunately, but nobody's been in there to see it. But the rumor is that we have more gold than anybody else in the world. But I take a look at the situation that we're in now, and the reason we're in it is because of the fiat currencies. And if they do set up a world currency, I think the population is going to say we're not going to go through this again. We can't go through it again. It has to be backed by something. It's the only way you can limit the government in what they print.
Yeah, but the populace hasn't been so great at limiting the government lately. Why don't you give people the phone number one more time?
Okay, yeah, if you have any questions or anything, feel free to give us a call. The number is 1-800-686-2237. Midas Resources, that's 1-800-686-2237.
All right, Jim, thank you very much for joining us. Midas Resources is where you want to be if you want to get into the gold and silver market to help support this program, Alex Jones, and really it'll help support yourself in the future. I mean, and now. I mean, it's a real currency. It's something that's backed by intrinsic value. It's maintained value throughout history. People need to get into it, Jim.
Absolutely, yeah. And ask for the Alex Jones special, and you folks out there have a great holiday weekend.
All right, thank you very much. On the other side, you got it. On the other side, we're going to talk about this 100% solar-powered stadium built in Taiwan. I mean, this thing is awesome. I'm not going to lie. See, if this is what going green meant, I'd be all about going green. But what going green really means is a carbon tax for you and me. I mean, total and complete control over what we ingest in our bodies, the size of the house that we live in, and whether or not we're allowed to have kids. That's what going green means. We'll talk about it on the other side. It's the Infowarrior with Jason Bermas, PrisonPlanet.tv, Infowars.com.